Boop. Oh, now you're working. Or are you? Okay, there you go. Yeah. What's my load like? It's not too terrible. So Nginx just crashed. That was the problem there. See how long it... Now I can't really tell though what the situation is. It seems like it's like a little bit choppy now. Although my load is down. This is like, we're testing out the triplicate stream here. Because I have it going. Is that just like too much? Okay, so we've got it going on YouTube and it's not as choppy from like what I can tell. Okay. So no, Twitch is angry. YouTube is fine. Streamplace is fine. What happens if I reload that? Oh, that's not right. Okay. Is there any chat? Is there any chat? I'm just going to reload that, because why not? Go here. Yes, okay. There's a bug in here. So, Sense Atlas. Before something crashes again. Did you crash? Nope. It's weird watching myself in triplicate, like, and they're all different offsets, like they're all different. The lag is, or not the lag, but the buffering or whatever you want to call it is all different. Anyway, I'm currently looking at an issue. The issue is something that came up, I guess, at the beginning of August, that Google in their infinite wisdom, is going to nuke the XSLT standard out of Chrome. Now, this makes sense in a way from an infosec standpoint, because libxSLT is what they're using for XSLT, libxml, libxSLT. I didn't actually know this until earlier this year, or not even, I guess it was like so they just like pipe out the text. If they want XML, they pipe out the text to libxml, and then they pipe it back. So they're not even actually like using like the DOM or anything like that when they do XML, which I think is kind of strange and bizarre. But that's they inherited that from Safari, and I think Safari did not inherit that from KHT or whatever it is, the Conqueror. So they're not that, it's not that old, but like libxml and libxSLT are old. They're like 25 years old or something like that. And so the XSLT is a template. It's like a functional language written in XML, and it's made for transforming markup trees from one to another. And it's like actually extremely useful for that. And the digital publishing scene uses XSLT for like all sorts of stuff. And the specs, over at the W3C have actually been like kept up to date. Like literally, as this was happening in on GitHub and in the Chrome with the WhatWG and the Chromium developers, literally there was a release of version 4 of XSLT. And now the version of the XSLT that's in the browsers is 1.0, and it's super rough. Like there's all sorts of stuff that it doesn't have. There's like all sorts of ideas that it doesn't have in it. But it's still, I personally find it serviceable for making like really lazy web templates. Really, really lazy. Especially because you can use it to transform XHTML into itself. So you can be sneaky like that, which is something that I have been doing on like literally everything that I've made in the last, since like I think 2006, 7, 8 was around when I was like, I had the like light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I can just use this for templating, and then I don't have to think about anything. Anyway, so this implementation has been basically untouched, and it's like, bug fixes or whatever for the last like 23 years or something like that. And, the web people, first of all, they have like a jihad on XML and anything to do with it. And, you gotta like, I will concede that like the actual physical act of typing XSLT is onerous. But, there's macros for that, a lot of it. But, it turns out that they aimed one of their pen testers, or not pen testers, but you know what I mean, security guys at it. And he found a bunch of 0 day. And so, of course, they want to get rid of this thing because it's like you can, basically craft a malicious thing and, own somebody's Chrome. And so from an InfoSec perspective, I'm like, sure, fine, like that makes sense. But like, you're going to replace it, right? And they're like, fuck no, we're not replacing it. Rather, what we're going to do is we're going to just like go and use our, seat on the WhatWG to just like whisk XSLT away and just make it not a thing anymore. And so, like, basically what's going to happen is in, some manner of days, they're going to push an update to Chrome, and this is not going to work anymore. And so there's a compensating thing I can do, which is I can make an XSLT transform. I can run it on the server side. I can do that. I can do that relatively quickly. Now the problem is, and you can see this if I say, all right, I can make and you'll get the gist of what's going on the screen here as I go step through it. If I actually click on the damn thing, that is, and this is going to be slow because I'm freaking loaded to the gills streaming video. But there is so the problem is that I was relying on browser cache to keep the XSLT, or to keep the page loads to be relatively, not terrible. And so what I have to do is I have to implement internal caching. And so what you can see through the process of stepping through Sense Atlas is you can actually sort of see this. You can see this argumentation structure, the sort of the problem structure get like built out. And so where I'm at then, so if I go back, oh, I can't do the right. So, the issue is, and the red ones are issues, the green ones are either positions or tasks, and the blue ones are arguments. But so I begin with the issue, and the issue is Google's going to eliminate XSLT. The position, or in this case, the task, is to create a server-side XSLT transform. Now, I'm going to just double the thing with the big text is always going to be the thing that's lit up in the center of the graph. And then the neighbors, the immediate neighbors, and I don't know if you can catch that. The immediate neighbors are in this. And now, if I'm not logged in, like these empty ones don't show up because they don't. But anyway, so I just sort of proceed through. I'm like, okay, again, Google's eliminating XSLT. And then, of course, this thing moves. I haven't animated it yet. I will eventually, but it moves to the center. Actually, you can sort of catch, sort of smushes around or whatever. So yeah, we were relying on browser cache to keep XSLT from being intolerably slow, and I think the Sense Atlas front end drops off at this point because this is all back-end stuff, so not as many nodes are going to show up when they finally do. There we are. Implement internal caching. Now, the way that I'm planning to do internal caching, so like Intertwingler has if I was going to go to let's just go to that anyway. Should have had this up. It's fine. And the picture, you can't see it because it is. Let's just dig that out. Do you have it in white? You do have it in white. Do you have it in SVG? Can I just go to it? Can I just go to it? Did that open in a new tab? There we go. Oh, the fonts. God damn it. SVG. Whatever. This is the architecture of Intertwingler. Intertwingler is the application server. Sense Atlas is the tool running on top of it. You have like a URL resolver. You got a graph database, and you got a content addressable store. And then you have all these things called handlers. And these transforms are also handlers. So like the XSLT transform is just going to be, or it's I'm just going to make one in here somewhere. So the request comes in, the URL gets pre-processed, the request gets run through a bunch of transforms, then it gets dispatched to a handler to get the response. So the thing is some of these, and then it just basically goes through these and says, okay, like, do you have this URL? Do you have this URL? Until something says yes or nothing says yes. And there's a bunch of work to do in this regard, but you know, there's always a bunch of work to do in this regard. So the thing is like a lot of these sort of generated, so like there's generated stuff on the fly. There's a bunch of stuff that's generated on the fly. It's slow. It's basically what thing. So something in here, there has to be some sort of a cache mechanism in here somewhere. So what I want to do is, and then I'm also going to put the caches in between these as well. So it's going to be like, you know, have you done this already? Yes or no. If you've done that, you know, and if you've done this, like, has it changed since you've done it? So that mechanism has to come in here. This picture doesn't show that mechanism yet. So, but inventing that mechanism, the plan is to use a content addressable store. And so what's going to happen is you're going to, you know, you make the request for the resource. You've got your headers and you've got your authentication or whatever, and then you get, or you know, presumably it's going to be get all the time, with the exception of these, which are going to be posts. But that's just part of the architecture. That's just how those work. Because you're posting, like you actually, the way that you do these transforms is you post the request or the response body into the transform, and then it gives you another body back out. But, which is fun. So there's places to cache. You cache in between these, whatever. You could even cache like requests, I guess, if you wanted. So anyway, the idea is like, what I need to figure out at this juncture is I need to figure out like how, like, so I'm gonna hit or if I've got cache headers already, which is the other thing. There's a helicopter going by. If I've got cache headers already, I'm going to basically like instead like attempt to run this queue, this thing, and until I get a response. But it could be like a 304, for example. But and this is the stuff that I need to sort of figure out right now, is like where in here, because it's got to talk to this content addressable store, because that's where the caching stuff is being stored. The other thing too is also like there's a bunch of work to do in the content addressable store itself, which has nothing to do with Intertwingler directly, but I've got to actually go, and I'm going to do that right now. I've probably written it down. Yeah. Come here, you little bastard. So there's a thing called Store Digest. That's a content addressable store that I wrote. And, you know, so it responds to a higher blah, blah, blah. Okay. It'd be useful to be able to indicate to the engine that a given handler manages a content addressable store. Okay, that's interesting. I have no idea what I mean by that, but that's fine. But there's a subtask Right. So this is how this works. There's a subtask that says like extend or store digest to include a way to indicate that an entry ought to be treated as cache. And so like if you think about like how a content addressable store works, you've got hash keys, like, and there's this really cool RFC 6920, which basically gives you a URL scheme for cryptographic digest, which is handy. I use it everywhere. And so the thing is though is like something goes into the store, gets put into the store, into the content addressable store, and but like you want to be able to mark that as cache so that you can delete it. But like, how can you tell? And so it's like, and then you say like, imagine, and I don't remember if I put it in here. So like, you know, what if a cache entry is superseded by an entity that's durable? So if you put something into the cache, right? And then you put the exact same thing in, but it's not cache. What do you do? And so there's a sort of like, there's matters of metadata that need to be sort of figured out. Now, going back to this, most of the data, basically all of the residual data in interTwinkler is in an RDF graph. And so what I'm basically thinking here is, so this I want to be dumb. The content addressable store, I just want to be dumb with the exception of like being able to indicate to it that it's cache. But there's a bunch of work that has to be done, and this is sort of the stuff that I'm mapping out right now using Sense Atlas is like, I have to fix this, and then there's the handler that I gotta do, and then there's a bunch of stuff in the actual cache. Like, say for example, where are we here? So, you know, there's a bunch of issues like, okay, it's like how do we handle private cache entries? You know, because you got, again, you make a request for something, you're authenticated. You get back, you know, a response. That response is like intended for your eyes only as far as the system is concerned. We cache that, that's fine. We give it, you know, and then what we get back is we get a handle back, like an actual cryptographic, you know, SHA-256 hash of the thing that the handler just produced that's like the web page or whatever that's for your eyes only. And then, you know, but then the issue there is, well, what happens when somebody else, so Alice does this and then Bob does this, and you know, they each get their respective web pages, but they happen to be identical, right? Like just a fluke, like these two things are the same and they will produce the same hash. And so then the question is like, okay, like the headers that have to go out, that's to the actual, like, 'cause we're talking like two different kinds of cache, like, you know, we're talking HTTP cache, and then we're talking just like the general purpose problem of caching. And then we're talking about content addressable stores and how we would like to flag some of those entries. And so, you know, you got the problem of like the content addressable store, you got to put something in there and then you indicate, you know, you flag it as cache when you put it in there. And then something comes along and, you know, puts something else in there, the identical thing, and it's not cache. You got to like basically clear out the cache flag on that. And then subsequently, if something puts, you know, it in again, it has to never do it again. It has to be idempotent. I can actually use that word in a sentence. So that is an issue that needs to be, and I think, yeah, so that was the, be able to handle much, blah, 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 so that's not, indicate to the engine that a given handler, yeah, okay, that's this guy. Yeah. So what if a cache entry? Yeah. So the other thing, the issue here is that the way that the implementation works right now, store digest, is I'm gonna have to like rip it apart. And so that is part of like what needs to get figured out right now is like, okay, what is the actual procedure for doing that? And because the way that the metadata is laid out in there, and again, this is not into Twangler, this is store digest, this is its own thing. So like, again, this has been, this is the chosen course of action, and I can put my name on here. I'm going to be the one doing that. The other thing this is going to do is speed this right the hell up. It's like slow right now because it doesn't have any cache. We all don't have any cache. So, anyway, just checking. One thing I really wish that the stream place had was the chat and the status on the same thing, like the stream status, just like YouTube. Like I've got a picture. I'm gonna just actually. Oops. No, I can't do that. Whatever. It's fine. I was going to take like a screenshot of the entire thing, and then I remembered I can't take a screenshot of just one screen. I have to take a screenshot of both screens or one window or a region. Anyway. So I've got this business with the cache, and then I've got this business with the changing the metadata of the storage. And so what I don't actually know here, so change the LMDB. Oh yeah, so that's something that needs to be done. That actually needs to be this is a subtask. This guy, this guy, this guy. Extend store digest. Yes. So this is actually a subtask of extend. Yeah, so that needs to happen. That's the incompatibility. So we go back up here. So effectively what this entails, like I have like a set of fields. It's basically like the record, the way I did it was kind of dumb, and this is like the reason why I need to deal with it. Like this is change the LMDB driver to use integer primary key. So LMDB is like yet another one of these key value stores. And one of the things that I didn't do initially because I was like, I don't know what endianness it's gonna be, and it's like, you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's little endian on any architecture that matters, and it's not like you're going to be like the scenario that I was imagining was like copying the actual physical LMDB file that gets created like from a machine of one architecture to a machine of another architecture. It's total overkill. I don't need to worry about it. So that was a sort of resolution I came to a very long time ago. That's what this is about. So, there's this entire, like you can see though, like as I'm like navigating through this thing, like there are And this is sort of like how it's nascent. Like there's you know, like I haven't spent a lot of time on the visualization yet. Like, and I want to sit down and just spend like months, like just working on the visualization. But what I don't have, like what I'm missing, is I'm missing like more or less like enough data. Like I'm only kind of at the point right now that I have enough data, for instance, to like start thinking about, you know, putting stuff on timelines, for example. Like these. So like the thing I'm gonna move up to, where are we here? Yeah. Right. So basically, like, you know, the issue, and this is so again, there's 3 classes of entity in the core IBIS, which is issue-based information system set. And, you know, so I can actually start here. I can start. So the green, sorry, what am I saying? The pink entities are issues. So this is an issue. We're going to need to handle a much higher request rate if we expose intertwingler to the open internet, which is true, which is why it's freaking slow. And that's why it's taking up like several gigabytes of RAM on my server, because it's like just a dog in this regard. But I want to use it to run my web properties. There's my issue. And so these are the positions. Is like positions are always something to do. Like they're always like a decision, or they're always like a resolution or a conclusion. They're like a do this or a don't do that, or like, you know, it shall be thus, like a kind of a thing. Be it resolved. That's what you know. Position is like always normative. It's always like what should be the case. Whereas I have found, at least, that the issues are like what is the case, you know. Now, the case could be, in this case, I want to use intertwingler to run my web properties, you know, and there's a bunch of positions. These are sort of things to do. These can actually be probably upgraded to tasks, and that's the thing that I can actually do, right? I can go in here, and like the gavel is a position, you know, clonk, whatever, and the this screwdriver or whatever, and the wrench is a task. So I can just do that. That turns into a task. And then when I go back, I don't know if you can pick this up, but it's a slightly different green. Maybe I'll just do it to all of them. I think this is. Anyway, I mean, I guess these all have been put into HTML. They're going to call these. Well, no, they haven't. They're not running live. I shouldn't say that. I think makethingsmakesense.com. I don't even know if there's anything on there anymore. It's like, there you go. Put makethingsmakesense.com into intertwingler. Question by, do we actually want to keep this domain alive? I don't have a resolution for that. I think I can just say the position on this is make things new. Domain, make things. Let's keep make things make sense.com and just redirect it for now. You know, whatever. Am I getting hangry? I might like break for a bit and go consume a comestible because I haven't really eaten much today, and I also swam 3 kilometers, and there's like one person watching, so I might just like feed myself and collect my thoughts about like how I want to proceed with this, and then come back in a bit. That's what I'm gonna do. So we oop. Did that actually work?